She looks just like any other American tourist, enjoying the fading sun as it slips behind the majestic pyramids of Egypt. And as this frail pensioner gingerly makes her way through the historic ruins, her presence among the crowds goes barely noticed. But the reality is, her smiles mask her own personal disappointment and frustration, for she'd rather be somewhere else. Her mind is on Gaza, not Giza. Yes, she is very different to the tourists who head to Egypt to marvel at its ancient heritage. But being different is not something new to this 85-year-old grandmother who has experienced what it's like to be different. It once nearly cost her her life, and it is that very life she now puts on the line for the sake of others. As a child, she stared down the barrel of a Nazi gun, and 8 decades on, she still finds herself in the crosshairs. But this time, they are the crosshairs of Israeli guns. Meet Hedy Epstein. This is her story, and she shares it with you today, in the hope you will also be inspired to go that one extra step for the children of Palestine. Hedy Epstein, you're 85 years young, as you say, and you were born in Freiburg, Germany. I want to take you right back to your childhood, and if you can tell me a little bit about it. Was it a normal sort of childhood?
Yes, I think it was a normal childhood to start out with. But after Hitler came to power in January of 1933, things did begin to change. I remember my parents and other adults talking about Hitler just before he came to power, and saying that they hoped he wouldn't come to power. And then after he did come to power, saying they hoped he wouldn't remain in power very long. And I just thought it was a lot of nonsense that adults talk about. Just 2 months after Hitler came to power, I realized that indeed it does have something to do with me. Saturday, April 1st, 1933, there was a boycott of Jewish businesses all over Germany. My father and his younger brother had a business that my great-grandfather started in 1858. And there was a Nazi standing in front of our business, in front of the Jewish bakery, the Jewish butcher, and so on. I asked my parents, what is this? Why is this man standing there? And they said, don't worry about it, it's just today. And it was true, it was only that day. And the purpose of the boycott was to prevent Christians from shopping in Jewish stores. And it certainly had that effect that day, but it also had long-range effects. My parents decided that I should go to school in a neighboring community because the educational level was somewhat higher there. The first year that I was in that school, everything seemed to be fairly normal. But after that, the children no longer talked to me. During recess, nobody played with me. And I had the great misfortune, the last 2.5 years that I was in that school, I had a math teacher who was an SS man. The SS were the Nazi stormtroopers, the Nazi elite. And he came to class almost every day wearing his black SS uniform, knee-high black boots, and in his right boot, he frequently carried a revolver. And when he asked me questions, he would sometimes have his hand on the revolver, at other times he actually pointed it at me.
And did he do that with other children in the class?
No, I was the only Jewish child in the class, and he didn't do that to any of the other children.
When did you become aware you were Jewish?
Well, my parents were religiously not Jewish, and we didn't adhere to all the practices, etc., of the Jewish religion. But Hitler made it rather clear what it means to be Jewish.
So you've been to the West Bank many times. When you've seen the Palestinian children, do you ever look and see any little Hedy Epsteins?
My persecution is minimal in comparison to what the Palestinian children, especially the Gazan children after this massacre last year and early this year. I mean, they have to be traumatized for the rest of their lives.
These children are orphans, and they are the very children who melt the heart of Hedy. She might be 85 years old now, but she knows the pain of being an orphan. While she survived the Holocaust, her parents didn't.
Soon after Hitler came to power, my parents realized that Germany is not a place to raise a family. And so they attempted to leave Germany, and increasingly they were more desperate in getting out of Germany. Initially, the attempts were to get us out as a family unit. But after my father came back from Dachau, the decision was made that if one of us has the opportunity to leave, then that person will leave, and hopefully the others can follow soon thereafter. And the opportunity to leave Germany came for me in May 1939. I left on a children's transport, or a Kindertransport, for England. England took in almost 10,000, mostly Jewish children, in the 9 months preceding World War II, and would have taken more except the war broke out. I remember my parents, before I left, gave me all kinds of admonitions, as parents normally do. Be good, be honest, and so on. And the last sentence always was, and we will see each other again soon. And I believed that. In 1956, I received 2 letters from a French organization, one pertaining to my father, one to my mother, telling me that they were sent to the concentration camp Auschwitz. My father was sent there in August of 1942, my mother on September 11th, 1942. And they've never been, that was the, that was it. It was not until September 1980, when I went back to Germany, or to Europe, to visit the various camps where my parents had been. And the last camp was Auschwitz. And when I stood on the place, which was called the ramp during the Nazi period, where the cattle cars arrived and the people had to get off, and the infamous Dr. Mengele made a selection as to who will live and who will die. When I stood on that spot in September 1980, I finally was able to say to myself, your parents did not survive. These were the table decorations on each table at my 85th birthday party. And the background, which is a faint background, is taken in the camp where my parents were, and on the occasion when men and women were allowed to spend 1 hour together. It is sort of faded in the background.
After the war, Hedy married and launched into her new life in America and tried to leave behind her tragic past. until news of a new human tragedy began to unfold, thousands of miles away.
In 1982, I got what you might call a wake-up call. I had heard about the massacres in the two refugee camps of Zabra and Shatila, located in Lebanon, and I needed to find out what was that all about, who was responsible for this.
What was driving you to find out more about Sabra and Shatila? Were you politically active?
I just heard, and I don't remember how I heard, probably read something, or I don't remember how I heard about it. It was just something that, a horrible incident that happened. And so I wondered, what is this all about? You know, and also what happened between 1948 and 1982 when I paid little or no attention to this part of the world. And as I learned more and understood more, I became increasingly more horrified by the policies and practices of the Israeli government and the Israeli military. And as I learned more and understood more, I began to speak out publicly against those policies and practices.
To everyone's amazement, the Holocaust survivor embraced the Palestinian struggle with a passion, and even went to witness for herself their suffering and resistance.
By 2003, I was in the West Bank for the first time. I've been in the West Bank 5 times all told since then.
Hedy Epstein is well known and much loved in the West Bank, but her recent focus has been on Gaza. And since it fell under the Israeli and Egyptian siege, she has been determined to smash the blockade by land or sea. I remember when the boat set sail from Larnaca, you were left standing, waving us off. How difficult was that?
It was just awful. I mean, I just wanted to jump in the water and swim to the boat and get on that boat.
And you could have swum as well, because you'd taken swimming lessons, hadn't you, before you joined the group? Since then, Hedy has been more determined than ever to get to the isolated Gaza Strip, which has been cut off from the rest of the world. More so since the brutal war, when around 1,400 innocent women, children and men were killed. But not everyone wants to see such an iconic person reach Gaza. But you were going to try again.
Right.
What happened?
In June of 2009, one day before I was leaving to join the rest of the group and go to Gaza on the Dignity, I was assaulted on my street where I live in the United States at about 1:45 in the afternoon, broad daylight, sun shining brightly. I didn't hear anyone approach me, but someone pushed me with both hands really hard on my back. I lost my balance and fell to the ground, injured both my knees, had a gash in my chin, and nicked an artery, and there was a tremendous amount of blood loss. So was I targeted, or was it a random act of violence? Who knows?
Undaunted by the brutal attack, Hedy once again packed her bags and headed for Egypt. She wasn't alone. While her plan was to join 1,400 members of the Gaza Freedom Marchers in December 2009, hundreds more were travelling by road on the Viva Palestina convoy led by George Galloway MP.
Hedy, come and give me a hug!
As she arrived in Cairo airport, I was convinced that this time she would get to Gaza. However, once again, there were those who were prepared to go to any lengths to stop her, and in the face of some brutal force by the Egyptian police, she showed her mettle.
door as they were having a peaceful sit-in. Beating, pulling hair, dragging people by their hair, throwing them over the fence.
Now, there was a lot of violence in one of the protests, and some of it was directed at the women protesters. Was Hedy caught up in that at all?
Well, she was maybe not in the center where it was really tough. I mean, it was really tough yesterday, but she was there, she was around, she was, and the Egyptian police treated her like everybody. I mean, they didn't make a distinction. We thought they will treat the women more friendly than the men or the old. But nothing. They didn't distinguish between. She was just treated like everybody.
For the next few weeks, she joined in the protests organised by the Gaza Freedom Marchers and Code Pink. And when it seemed that the Cairo authorities had relented, Hedy's bags were packed for Gaza once again.
We keep on making pressure.
But it turned out only 2 buses would leave the Egyptian capital for the Rafah border and Gaza.
These buses should not go, but if anyone wants to go, we're not going to stop them. However, I was going to go. I wanted to go. I always wanted to go. I wanted to see how it's like. I wanted to report back. But the steering committee in Gaza told us not to come.
Nobody
and when this
wants
happened,
to go on this bus.
Okay. No. What happened?
Nobody.
We got it on site, we're ready to roll.
As many people as you can put on this bus, bring them.
This is 1,400 people that came here for the Palestinian struggle. Do you understand?
The rest of the buses.
Our demand is what we've wanted. 1360 going in and, lifting the siege.
Emotions were running very high. And in the midst of all the anger, Hedy made a decision which shocked everyone present.
I have decided not to join those 100 of you who are going to go. Thank you. And here are my reasons for the most difficult and heart-rending decision that I've ever made in my entire life. The goal of this march is to break the siege of Gaza. 1,400 people died in Gaza last year at about this time. 1,400 people could be marching to Gaza today.
It was a courageous decision to make, and not an easy one. Instead, she returned to the police lines and vented her anger.
It was an incredibly difficult decision that I made because I wanted so desperately to go to Gaza and be with the Gazan people and let them know that I'm sending them greetings from the people in my community back in the United States. But on the other hand, I also realized that by the Egyptian government saying 100 out of the almost 1,400 of us, that only 100 can go to Gaza. I knew this was a typical tactic of authoritarian governments of dividing and conquering, and I did not want to be part of that decision.
But despite the huge personal disappointment, she still revealed her trademark humour and determination to succeed.
I am going to get there if I have to go and hire someone to build an airport in Gaza so I can fly in. I tried by boat, I tried by land, maybe by air.
I think I give up.
Anyone want to donate money for Gaza airport?
She went on to show her solidarity with the French activists who were holding a week-long occupation of the footpath outside their embassy in the Egyptian capital. And she also joined in other actions, including a legal one to stop the building of a steel wall erected to block the few tunnels to the Rafah border which provide a lifeline to the Gazans.
It is people like us who bring change. And so that wall will come down. And it will come down very, very soon. If I have to go there and chisel at it piece by piece. Thank you.
Despite the setbacks and the knockbacks, Hedy Epstein is eternally optimistic. And it is this side of her character which has obviously carried her through some of the darkest moments of her life. Her love for the people of Palestine is undeniable, and her determination to do what is right by them and their children drives her forward. Her unwavering determination has earned her the respect of the most cynical activists from across the world, while reducing others to tears.
When I heard her story, an 83-year-old woman, Jewish, survived the Holocaust, and she's coming on board. She's going to Gaza to stand next to my people because there's an injustice that she knows very well that have taken place. I took a promise upon myself to be her guardian angel, to protect her if anything happens. But yet Hedy, she said that she will stand in front of us to protect us.
She didn't want that we parted without her, but it was an advice from the doctors. And she just said, I never mind, I can go with you. If I just die on board, you can jet me, you can throw me overboard.
She's an amazing symbol, one being a grandmother, an elderly woman, 85 years old, Jewish, and on top of that, a Holocaust survivor, somebody who knows the pain of the government oppression, and she is a figure that we all look up to. It's like, I want to be like Hedy when I grow up.
Because of her survival, she chooses to embrace the world rather than reject the world or be afraid of the world.
Happy New Year!
It's New Year's Eve in the West, and as Hedy lights a candle of hope for 2010, her message is clear.
I want peace and justice for everyone, but especially for the people in Gaza and in Palestine.
And guess where she wants to spend next New Year?
And next year in Gaza, if not sooner, we can celebrate New Year the day that Gaza is open and free to the rest of the world, so that people can come and go, and the Gaza people can come and go.
Hedy might never get to Gaza, but nor will she ever give up trying. She agreed to share her story with you today in the hope it moves you to help the children of Palestine from the West Bank to the Gaza Strip. Now the question you must ask yourself is this: what can I do to light up the lives of these innocent children? We hope you will be inspired by her determination. And while we can't all be Hedy, we can follow her example.
Our work is not over. You know, we can't go home and say, oh, we've done a wonderful thing and now we're tired and we're going to rest. We cannot stop, not even tomorrow or the next day or next week, because otherwise we will lose the momentum that we have reached here, where every single day we are doing something that will bring us closer to ending the siege in Gaza.